Ora, dando Casada, di Shovetele, cerca di cine, di tendo, mo che Kunzukin Namsha Chida, Kunzup Dembas, Kunzup Yungo Chida, Rashing or Rashing to the Temba to the Tombi, Tombani said, Dunham Dembas, Kunzu Deba, the Dundebiki Temba, Namsha in yours. The names are that Dunham Demba said, Ganlia, Dubamiba, Rangun to be Tomba in za, that Tomba the Dunham Demba, Ganlama to Rangun to be Tomba in za, and the Carriers and I change the dinner to buy your dingy and Java dinner to buy your bodies. Tis a pa lupa me tawas and me change the dinner your essay. That niggas on the tea show a tea or shirwa.
Good afternoon. This morning we looked at how all phenomena have two entities, one being the ultimate truth and the other being the conventional truth. The phenomenon's emptiness of inherent existence, this is the ultimate truth. And the conventional truth is that because the phenomenon is a dependent arising, it can function. So all phenomena have these two entities.
Temba tomba toni la kebra kaya yo mares ta gari kebra yorosene ngara zugi semdi ngodla kunzup tembi namsha semdi dala ane nyomba be namsha ta ane jig jiba mangbo shye bare sanji gi semdi da che gyun tamje dan jawa chires kebra tonji chue semdi la kebra yoma de semgi rashin wo temba mo jiba la kebra yo mares dene me ban za da ngara zugi semdi ana tenjin jawa chuan za 당아도 데마 마주바래 마주바서 고 챈치를 되네 유어다 여바래 디네상 아 저기 곰 냠는지 제바제 곰 냠는지도 아주 셈게 녀모베릭티 파 규르제 응 셈게 야뭐 공부들 좋아져야네 다른 상이 고모 토야기 상지기 나신 지심나 규어 지부지게 차 여바디 상이 고모 토야 여바디 다다 드링 디 내갑게다 아주 군도 때부터 된데 봐서 남자들이 띵고 해서 하고 그래서 어디가 대신어도 쇼게 뒤고 시사시라.
Furthermore, in terms of its empty nature, there is no difference between the mind of a Buddha and our own mind. The ultimate truth is identical. There's no difference in the emptiness of the mind of a Buddha or an ordinary being such as ourselves. Where the difference is the conventional nature, in that our mind is polluted by afflictions. But these afflictions, being a conventional truth, have come about in dependence on causes and conditions, which means independence on the cultivation of opposing causes. All those stains can be completely eradicated. This means that because the stains on the conventional nature of our mind is a dependent arising, a conventional truth, those stains can be eradicated completely. In this way, we can develop and change and become a perfected being, attain enlightenment. This then is in brief the presentation on the two truths that we've looked at thus far.
Ora, nangdo yoge dagasore chue kan de chine ya ko dakshin jibe chena ane rangyu ngo di nye yo ma dongsan ma to dakshin jibe chena nye yo ma res la ro da dine la de dangazo le gare dogwali gi lamna dangazo gi bene dakshin jibe chena chue kan nye me mindu se di 튀기면 도스. 가선 다신 제베 체나 가르니고 동바 인이고 와서. 다신 제베 체나 다신 제베 체나 가르 통고서 동바이 도고도 와서. 지서 동바이 인이기도 와서. 지서 다신 제베 체나 가야 인이기 말해서네. 남나 튀기면 도스. 가선 동바이 인이기도 와서 그래. 지서 다 동바이인데 덴바 주바레스. Bendigo is the Holy God.
This morning we heard once again that when one investigates to see if phenomena exist in the way that they appear, one comes to see that they do not, and one realizes emptiness, that the phenomenon is empty of existing the way that it appears, it's empty of true existence. Then a doubt may come, because when one investigates the phenomenon and realizes that it's empty, well, one may not be finding the essence of the phenomenon, because one's finding it doesn't exist by way of its own essence, but one does find emptiness. So is emptiness then, and not perhaps truly existent? Is emptiness not independent? And therefore, when one investigates a phenomenon, what one can be said to be found is emptiness. And then emptiness then would be established as truly existent. So such a doubt then may arise. This doubt arises because in the Prasangika presentation it says that if a phenomenon exists in the way that it appears as truly existent, then one should be able to find that essence by which the phenomenon appears to us to exist. And if one then investigates and finds that essence, then the phenomenon is now established as being truly existent. So when one investigates, what is it that one finds? It's emptiness. Emptiness is realized. So then if emptiness is found, does it not mean then that emptiness is truly existent?
Suki tenge tonyi, suk temba drupa tonyi di nyi go res. Chesa, di cheba chige, shigari tende cheba, suki tende cheba re. Su korong ganish du cheba che du, an tamala suk rangshin yungo sewu tong, suk rangshin drupa tongpa togu go re.
Again then, the doubt comes because we hear in the Prasangika presentation that phenomena appear to exist by way of their own essence, and if that is how they exist, this independent, truly existent essence should be found. When one investigates, one doesn't find it, but finds emptiness. So then, if emptiness is found, does that then not mean that emptiness itself is truly existent? So that's the basis for the doubt. What is correct here is that when a phenomenon is investigated, no essence, when any phenomenon is investigated, no nature by which it exists or essence by which it exists is found. So when one takes as an illustration a particular form, one sees how it appears, investigates, and one does not find that form. One doesn't find the essence of that form, but one does find the emptiness of the form.
Dinashin da do sugli jeba chedu, sug ganesh du jeba chedu, sug nyaya mare, sugi tingi tongpa nyi yong, sug nyaya mare. Dan sug jeba sugi tingi jeba chene, sugi tongpa di nyi yong du, dan sug nyi go, sug tongpa nyi du, tongpa nyi korong da tempa drupa rebe lamna, diya mare chor da. Chisa tongpa nyi korong ya, zuji che chen, zuji che che, tongpa nyi korong shi sung che, da tongpa nyi di ganesh du, lola nawa na shin tongpa yi nduge mindu cheba cheba na de tongpa yi de ni ma des gang cheba chese shi tongpa yi de ni ma des di ga ni ge sene de ne ga son de ni ge tongpa di rang xin du be tongpa chi ni ge de jesa tongpa yi se wo de ming在北京拿了蒙古的东巴尼噻，加上东巴尼可能苏给定义东，当不苏点不住么的姐姐呢，接不起这个了，苏点不住东尼的尼个了哇，的东巴尼的些，但苏点不住东尼可能点不住不热呗，干的多了呢，这样落了那往那些对面的接不呢，这样怕落了那往那些，让我们的猪八去要嘛，加上这样怕接呢接不进呢。属于东夷的年要嘛，满年吧，看你个是东半年写的，东半年可能让心这边东上去一个的，东半年这个的。
Again, one's investigating form, some object or sight or sound or taste, touch, smell, see how it appears to the mind as truly existent. One investigates and find no true existence can be found. One finds that the form is empty of existing truly. So emptiness is found. How then does emptiness appear to consciousness? Well, when emptiness appears to consciousness, just like all other phenomena, it also appears as being truly existent. Then, when that is sought, in the same way as one investigated the form to see whether it exists in the way that it appears, so too with emptiness. One investigates emptiness now as the object and realizes that it too is empty of true existence. And here one comes to realize the emptiness of emptiness.
Dene nongsan koronga rangxing tongpa yinma do chu daya nye tuk ma res. Pendo bumba roju shi songje, bumba dema rumba jeba ina, bumba koran nigi ma re, bumba tinga tongyi ni nigi res. Di na shi nga rang zuki nga sede nga de chuchen songje, jebi shi songje, deya jeba ina, nga nigi ma re, nga yi tinga tongyi ni nigi res. Di na shi chu ka de ka ina, di na shi tongpa nyi korong shi songje, jeba ina,东半一块儿，山西这边东北东半一个嘛，东半一块儿一个嘛的是，西松也这个东半一个嘛的是。现在今年上去干的前年，考虑西松接吧呢，第一定个东一的嘛都可能年要嘛的是，接着去他们这大山这边是那年没吧，第二是送嘛都去这大山这边才呢，现今一个月吧，真正你大山这边是年月吧是月嘛的，去这接吧接，现在这一个月吧呢。Bumba cheba chedu, bumba matong aji, bumba tinga tongyi nye rwa, bumba le shenpe tongyi nye go rwa. Di nye pa tsamyi, ko cheba chena nye gidu se de che ya ma re che, di si go ma re. Di shi nga zo dokpa kar sa na, shi chi bumba cheba chedu na, bumba tinga tongyi nye gidu, che zang kanya nye mindu se, digi mindu se dokpa che rwa. Che zang di kaya ma, di dokpa se di dokpa di ne si go ma, nga zo kar la go sa na. Bumba koro cheba tashin shi sung je, cheba chena bumba nye gi ma re. Dene joksi de jewe shishungje, kora jeba je shishungje, dasan jebe zina joksi niga ma re. Di na xin, dongpa ni kora jeba shishungje, dongpa ni de ganis tu jeba ina, dongpa ni niga ma re, dongpa ni niga ma re, dongpa ni shishungje, dongpa ni niga ma re. Jizang chue ganis ina, di pa shishungje, ganis tu jeba ina, rangi ngo rangxin ma do, nini ma do, korong nye yo ma re. Me ba za, chue tam je, daxin jebe zina, niyu me ba re, se di si wo dine chi la go re.
All phenomena, when investigated, they are found to be empty of inherent existence, empty of self-existence. Whether it's an object or form such as a vase, whether it's the self, whether it's emptiness itself that is investigated, whatever phenomenon is investigated is found to not exist in the way that it appears, not to be independent, not exist by way of its own nature. This is the case, again, for any phenomenon. For example, if we investigate a table, and we investigate the table, first see how it appears to mind, and then we investigate, trying to find the essence of the table, the tableness itself. And we come to recognize or come to realize that the table is not established by way of its own essence. There is nothing about this table that makes it a table. We find that the table is empty of existing in the way that it appears. And then that realization of the table being empty, when that is taken as the object, we recognize that it too appears to mind as being inherently existent or existent by way of its own nature. And when we investigate, we recognize that the object now of emptiness, just like the previous object of the table, is empty of inherent existence. So therefore, all phenomena, when investigated, are found to be empty of existing by way of their own nature, or empty of being self-existent.
Oh yeah, that in it. Denma loina. Ne döndem demba. Döndem dembe yawa rob zamji hoto chejin se döndem be yawa dordöje olma chel shigin sungore or hoto chejin sa. Da kunzo demba se or. Kunzo demba dela 당아도 군습 demba se de jiang shuge che tamji de döndem demba de kunzo demba ni yue se de kunzo demba se gore. Da kunzo demba dela ya ane 지당 군습 덴바들의 양다바세 요말 군습 덴바세 양다바세 요말 고 군습 체대로 군습으로 이나야 지딩기 셰비 시행원을 되되 양다바의 로바세 이용거래제 지딩 시행의 지딩비 가 저거 또 지딩 발라는 거 돈이 마도베 강사 돈이 마도베 강사기 가 저 셰비기 파토나를 따바이나 안 될래야 안 양다베 군습의 로베 군습세네 지딘 시행을 되네 이 반이와 예와 이체 요래저래 시행을 니래 때때 근데 양로 니수 제바 인디에서
Returning then to our text. So this morning it was mentioned that phenomena are ultimate. There are phenomena divided into ultimate truths and conventional truths, and all phenomena have these two essences. Now looking at the text, in the middle of page 8, the divisions of ultimate truth will be briefly explained below. Conventional truths themselves are divided into the real or correct and the unreal or wrong, from the point of view of an ordinary worldly consciousness. So conventional truths are divided into two, and these are just alternative translations. The one division is real or correct, the other division is unreal or wrong. And it's divided between these two, real and unreal, from the point of view of an ordinary worldly consciousness. And an ordinary worldly consciousness is the consciousness of someone who has not realized emptiness. An ordinary person or worldly person is someone who has not realized emptiness, and in accordance or from the point of view of their consciousness, phenomena are divided conventional truths are divided into real and unreal. Coming now to the first quotation from Chandrakirti. False perception is asserted to be of two types, those having clear and those with impaired sense powers. A consciousness having an impaired sense power is asserted as wrong compared to one with a sound sense power.
타니베 통화세 타니베 셰비기 세메 유두 규베게 세메 또타게 군조 템바세 군조세들라 타니베 세메 유두 또베 세메 유데를 군조 템바 이마가서 군조 템바 데네 군조 템바 데라야 지팅 시행을 되되 양다바세지나 로바세데 니용그레세 넘버 2 되데세데 통화 준방 세 준보구도 대바텔라 지디 시행을 되되 양다바다 로바세데 넘버 2 되되 넘버 2 요래서
conventional consciousness, so looking at the first line here, conventional consciousness then can be either correct or mistaken. False perception is asserted to be of two types. False perception then refers to conventional awareness, and it is asserted to be of two types, correct and mistaken, or what do we have here, correct or wrong.
Then, Nambo Ganesh Yagorasine, then Wambo said that Wambo Junjin also there. Wambo said that Wambo Junjin also there, to give Migi, Pen Wambo the Migi Sheba Tele Shavashina, Migi Wambo the Jun you can give Migi Sheba Chida, Migi Wambo the Jun Migi Sheba Yungurua, Sheba says that Wambo says, Wambo Sewa, Wambo the Jun Medic, Wambo Unit Sewa, she would know you can. Della tenne Migi Sheba Chigongore. Says I won't pull a Jun you be Kabla, then it won't put Della tenne Migi Sheba Chigni Yungurua. Wombo said that Wombo Jun no said it. Wombo said that Wombo Jun, Wombo said Migi, down to Migi Wombo the Chavan.
Those having clear and those with impaired sense powers. So, sense powers, for example, the eye sense power, can either be faulty or not faulty. So either impaired or clear.
That one boss that Ombo Junior sitting on the Yan Banagala, Sena, Dawa Shard, you come to Tawina, one boy you never can tell you in Dawachik Tungorwa, Dawachik Tungore. That one boy who does a love name, one boy the part Jun, they do love big one boy part names, that when one boy Junior, in a Dawani shadow, Dawani Tontigore. Just now, one boy Jun, you pick up the lady in Dawani and go to us. That one boy Jun, maybe almost sour satin to you pick up Dawachik Tung to us or that.
For example, if tonight one looks at the clear night sky and sees a moon, then one's eye sense power, visual sense power, will be correct, because there is just one moon to see. But if then one presses on one's eye, that will then have an impact on one's eye sense power, and then one will look at the moon and see now there are two. That then, of course, is a faulty sense power.
Dawachik di Jitembal Yandabares. Kunzu Yanda, Kunzo Yanda, then Dawani di Yanzuki Jitembal to the Lobar Chatteres.
In such an illustration, when there's one moon, or they press on one's eye and there suddenly now are two, then from the perspective of ordinary worldly people, they will recognize that one moon is correct, but seeing two moons is wrong. So from the perspective of ordinary people, they will know that two moons is wrong, but seeing a single moon is correct.
Dawani Dawani Nadi Nayake, Dawani Jitimba, the Lobarella, Secarena, now to get any Dawang Mille to Dawani Nawanashi, any Dawani Mebading as a Haku. How go on that Dawani, the Nang Mill and Nangor, the Nawanashi, Yomare, somebody on the Simming to go. Chesa, now the me won't put you can meet one bullet, meet the Dawani now you do. Dawani now Yomarta, something as to say Haku to go. Didn't Diza, you get Dawani now and Nashin, now I get Dawani body, Lopa, scarcely now and Nashin, Mevato to go. Dinner in the nigger now you can give Sheva one shit dear. To treat tourists, Juniors, one of the juniors, Migi Sheba Junior Mato, called Loshi Junior and Junior had Madison, one Sheba Dia, Junior by the how to worry, Sheba de la now and Ashi, Dawani, now at some mato, Dawani Zao in the Yomares and begin some of the lit to work. Jeza, now to Tony Mato by Inaya, the Niki won't be Junior Dawani now and Ashin, Dawani now and Ashin, Dawani Mebadi, Mazuto to go, what is a Lovares.
When two moons appear to one's consciousness, ordinary people will know that that is wrong. They are not two moons. And the reason that this then would be said to be a wrong perception is because ordinary people, worldly people like ourselves, we know that the phenomenon does not exist in the way that it's appearing to us. From the mere appearance of two moons, we can recognize immediately with a valid cognizer that that consciousness is wrong. There are not two moons. So one clearly can recognize that this appearance is wrong. An ordinary worldly person can clearly recognize that this appearance is wrong and that the sense consciousness is faulty.
나와 나시 ngana ju 가서 나와 된 다가라레 섬고로와 덴바 숨고로와 지다 덴바 숨고레시 내가 저기 당나도 지진 셰발라 지디 생활을 또 얘기디 다와지 덴바레 나와 나시 다가라레 써야지.
Whereas when one moon appears to our consciousness, ordinary worldly person will take that appearance to be true, which means take an appearance to be true that the object exists in the way that it appears. So that would be an illustration of a correct or real conventional truth.
당한서 지진 생활을 되게 양다와래 마도 거 양다와 말해. 저 지단 양다와래요. 막 그래서는 당한 저기 다와디 가서 미래 나와 나신 요르베스네 요 말에서 가서 계신의 시바 나신 나와 나신 나도 겁라 그는 거라서네 간라에 마도 랑원이 주바 나도 거봐. 지금 나와 나시 유나 랑원이 주바 요거. 진짜 나와 다시 다신 집에서나 예매로와. 진짜 당한서 돈이 마도베 간사게 디제바지 두고 말. 진짜 디네자 네 돈이 또한 간사 삼다와이나 다와 지당 다와디 덴바 말에서 양다와 말에서 그래서 나와 나신직 용고 말 제바지나 니에요 말에서 양다와 말에서 다다 돈이 마도베 간사가서 지딘 셰비 몰라데네 다와 나와는 다가라 요르다선 덴바지 거래서 덴바.
Here where we see in the paragraph above, conventional truths themselves are divided into real or correct and the unreal or wrong, from the point of view of ordinary worldly consciousness. So it's important here to understand that when a moon appears to an ordinary person such as ourselves, that whilst that is a correct conventional truth, it is only correct from the perspective of ordinary worldly consciousness, from someone who hasn't realized emptiness. Because what makes it a correct conventional truth is that is that the object is taken to exist in the way that it appears. So this is why it's taken as being true. But as we've heard, it doesn't exist in the way that it appears. But for ordinary people who haven't realized emptiness, the moon will appear, a single moon will appear, and they will believe it exists in the way that it appears to their consciousness, and therefore is true. And this is a correct conventional truth, but only correct from the perspective of an ordinary worldly being, someone who hasn't realized emptiness. On the other hand, someone who has realized emptiness will know that the moon does not exist in the way that it appears. There's the key difference.
Dine inzada gyunde wangjen namji sheba ni sede gyunde wangjen namji sheba ji sede ga wangwo salam wo gyunde no xin zhuo xia de na wangbo le gyun yue de gen ini dawa ni na de gen sheba chi ro wa gyunde wangjen namji sheba ni sede da gyunde wangjen namji sheba ni da zhe di sumba de xia ro wa zhe gyunde wangjen namji sheba de sede wangbo le gyun yue da kangje 차규 레드긴 레비게 차규 레드긴게 셰바디 아니 디셰바디 록바레스 지딘 셰비게 디 록셰인 바하고 두고레스 록바레스 디 셰바니 왕보 레규르 그 록바이미 김자서 왕보 레규르 셰디 록바르데스 왕보 레규르스나 왕보의 괴메 되긴 차규 말리베 셰바를 되나 셰바디 록셰레스 차규 레드긴 셰바디 차유 말레베 셰바 델라 되고 로바차데스 로바레죠.
False perception is asserted to be of two types, those having clear and those with impaired sense powers. A consciousness having an impaired sense power is asserted as wrong compared to one with a sound sense power. Here then, the ordinary worldly person is able to recognize that, for example, the appearance of two moons is wrong. It is a wrong appearance, and it is because of the fault in the sense power. And not only can the ordinary person recognize that the sense power is impaired, but that the resulting sense consciousness is faulty.
Wangpo salda wangpo chiga nipa de wangpo salda wangpo gyun chen no se de wangpo la gyun yue che wangpo gyun mebe ki to ne ane wangpo de la dine sheba chik ki de se ruwa wang she chi yung re wangpo gyun yue ken de la dine ane ki sheba chik ki go res jasa da wangpo chiga nipa de da wangpo gyun yue ken yue ba de la dine ki be sheba di wangpo gyun me ki de la dine sheba de la dine ko sheba lokpa re sheba lokpa re sa chi te sung re.
So, an ordinary person then, who has a sense consciousness that arising from a sense power that is not impaired, in other words, is sound, will be able to recognize that the appearance from an impaired sense power, that appearance to the sense consciousness, is wrong. So, an ordinary person whose consciousness is unimpaired is able to recognize that a faulty sense, the appearance to a faulty sense power and sense consciousness is wrong.
So that wangpo se de lang anzo wangpo zhugli gura mi yu wangpo nai wangpo nei wangpo ji wangpo lu yi wangpo yi yi wangpo zhugli gura jisa wangpo zhugla gyun yu bai na dan sheba dian lo she gyun zhug ge yung ruwa da wangpo la gyun me keng sheba de lai na dan chagyu chuyu ma le be ne ki sheba de la da wangpo gana zu jitin sheba la jitin be ge yang da ba re sa ji du no chu ma yang da ba re sa ngu son ya chi ruwa jisa dine yin za de le di sung do wa nöba mebe wangpo zhu nam ki se ta deji wangpo la nöba kyun sheba de lo she de ya sarwa ta nöba mebe ta sheba de la wangpo la nöba mekin yu tuan sheba de sheba yang da ba de che anzo wangpo la kyun ken ki sheba de sheba lo ba de sha di yu de ki yang da ba da lo ba se sha ta dine yin za da wangpo la gyun meke wangpo la nöba mebe wangpo zhu nam ki songwa gangshik se de yu le sha kwa da wangpo la nöba meke ki songwi ki wangpo tela tene kibi sheba ki songwi ki yu gangyin ba di na jitin yi do jitin ba ni la tene jitin ni le tenpa yin se kwa da yang da pa re sa jitin ni do jitin ni le ten se de jitin be sheba jitin ni do se de jitin be sheba se do sheba de la de ne ane yang da ba re se den ba re sa ji
Looking then at the second verse on Chandakirti, everything apprehended by the unimpaired six sense powers and realized by the world are true from the perspective of the world itself. The remaining are wrong from the stance of the world. Again then, from the stance of the world is referring to ordinary people who have not realized emptiness. And then at the first line, the six sense powers. So these are going from the sense powers for the visual consciousness through the mental consciousness. So for all six. So independence on a faulty sense power arises a sense consciousness which too is wrong. And this can be recognized by a worldly being whose own sense power and resulting sense consciousness is not at fault.
Dan delia Lama ni jidi ni le de lokar sha se de Lama se de karsane wangbo zhugli neba meba de she sarwa da di Lama karsane wangbo zhugli gyun yu ken siwa de sheba wangbo zhugbo gyun yu ken dela de ne gebe ge shebe ge yu kan yin ba de le ane ka so re yu de la zimbe yu de la da jikten be ni la de lokar yu lokar se nabar sha sen du se ne songwa re je le Lama said one. Lama ni jidin nila lokwana ba sha said one. Lama said the Jigarishas no wombo drew Kim meba. Delatini kibi shebi yu, toya yu dige, jidin shingona did the yanda ba de sagero. The Kim Megan Shesawazan, Diga Ladu, Kim you can ladu, wombo drew la Kim you can give, then delatini kibi shebi yu, toya yu di, jidin but tell a lokwa so.
The last two lines, or the last line, the remaining are wrong from the stance of the world. Remaining here, it just means that in terms of the six sense powers, what is being presented here relates to all the sense powers. That when one is faulty, this is able to be recognized by another sense consciousness that is not faulty. So it applies to all six.
나는 나랑 저기 가르친 거로서는 지딘 쉐벌레드네 양다비 가서 로비 유 가르세네 먼저 멜론당의 제신의 수nye 세다 ane 미규 추세 나야 추세 나야 저러와 어디니게 안에 다와니 나야게 다와니 되게다 이제 처상 다변에 아 저기 지딘 생활할 로바레스 로비 군습세야지 변한 아주 멜론당의 제신기디 나아들 두스타요 되게라 아 저기 셰발라 왕셰라 안에 가르는 것은 제신 수년디 나 저기 동 뭐네 임바로시 난고를 때 이나야 딱 알아 저 가라고서 디멜로는 수년디 수년 말도 동 뭐네 말 삼바딩 가서 하고 투고로 봐 제가 나와 나신 동데 말에 선비기 하고 투고로 제가 그 나와 나신 많이 받이 또 투와 현장 나 저기데 로바래 지디 양다베기 지딘 생활할 때 지딘 백에 로바 돈이 마도베 가사게 돼서 로바이마 또 투구를 해서 다 하고 투구를 제상아도 제신로 중년라 다연되게 되는 제신대가 소소 동문이만 나와 나신 디요 말에 선배게 삼로디 땅 투구 또 투구를 지딘 시비 돈이 마도바 있나야 돼서게 로바이마 또 투구를 해서 다와니 밀려야 두스진데 다와니 나요도 다와니 나와 나신 매바디 아주 돈이 마도베 가사게 나와 나신 마두바디 또 투구를 해서 디나신 아주 님의 차와다 재탕을 받다 다른 보다 님의 차와디네 지레도 미니마 지금 님의 외다 미니 랑바이 레도 추나신지 지 통고를 와 디미규 출라기로 와 제가 니 가시기도 나에도 추나신 능고를 이내양 나 저기 돈이 마도베 가사게 디수 추마인 바 하고 나와 나시 추낭거 나시 능거를 추마인 바 하고 두고서 나와 나신 매바 또 두고래 제가 디수 로바래서 지딘시 지딘발도 로바세 디수 시고다
Ordinary worldly people like ourselves who haven't realized emptiness, we are able to see a reflection, a mirage or two moons, and know that these are unreal conventional truths, which means we know that they do not exist in the way that they appear to consciousness. Similarly, when we look in the mirror and we see our own face, ordinary person such as ourselves who has not realized emptiness will recognize that that is a reflection, that the face that we see before us, well, that appears to our consciousness, does not exist in the way that it appears. Ordinary people can realize this. Similarly, on a sunny day, when a sunny, clear day, when one sees a mirage, an ordinary person will know that that is a mirage. There's not water over there. That such an ordinary person is able to recognize that the phenomenon does not exist in the way that it appears. It is an unreal conventional truth.
나 차이바 하모가 나모여나 나모여 하모가 지르 하모가 용거로 와 되니게 다 원보를 괜찮은데 되니게 망보 일리거로 와 당아도 계속 찾아다 된다라 계속 찾아가 저기 지딘 비 돈이 마도베 가사이네 계속 로시 셰 되니 셰바디게 로시 바 노트이 바 하고 두그래 되니게 유나와나 신디 매바데 또 두고래 이제 지딘 셰발레데 로바레스 다 디멘베게다 那能用啊，都加拉通的心那呀的，没多那呀的，米那那个的，的那话那些毛主的，那话那些有嘛的三八的俺是多土嘛，可是那话那有的三八的俺这个几点变那了，但那话那就有的点不经过了，点吧经过，现在就是现在几天先过了，对的，那养大把下头有的是，现在呀，几天养大把嘛的，几天先过了，对的养大把的也是我的。
You can think of many illustrations that relate to this. So I've given several relating to what we see, but also there'll be illustrations where we hear something and we recognize that it does not exist in the way that it appears, or we taste something and so forth. So in brief, the difference then between real and unreal conventional truths is an ordinary person who hasn't realized emptiness, when they can realize that something does not exist in the way that it appears, that is an unreal conventional truth. But other phenomena, such as sounds that we are hearing now, things that we are seeing now, what we're thinking about, we take these to exist in the way that they appear. So those are real conventional truths.
대대로 덴바니게 남샤 시에거바니 세워다 당한 저기 덴바니게 남샤 시에거바도 김생 가르쳤다 가르기 차바요 거기 신고야 가르려놨나 덴바니게 남주 군주의 취역간에 진나 될이야 돈단 덴바세도 군주 덴바세 남바 니여바디 하고고의 김생 가르려놨나 시에거바니 상안나서 제비게 나완 디다라 덴도 저와 제거베 강라 저와 제시게 시디 차부 철푸기 라신 시에고스
Then in brief, the difference between the two types of conventional truths is whether an ordinary person can recognize whether the phenomenon exists in the way that it appears or not. That is the basis upon which the differentiation is made. Returning to the text then, the purpose of knowing thus the presentation of the two truths is as follows. Since it is absolutely necessary to be involved with these appearances which bring about varieties of beneficial and harmful effects, it is necessary to know the two natures, superficial and deep, of these objects with which we interact.
대시 년에 셰바나지 변는 아주 되네 쉬어래 아주 마추 죽슈어와 죽슈마 조디컬 디갈래 삼바여와 삼바기데르 랑셰 메네 추들 마 따기로와 따디갑라 디 두스타디가데 두스 테스타로와 되네 아주 추디 마 죽요 요래 안데 삼바도 구게 땡고 말데 인나 아주 미나라 칼레고선 삼바드 야 유로하신 미글 되네 셔고도와 셔고르 되는 네 아우 냠녀여 되네 셔고르 되네 셔도 갑랑 아주라 추지다 당 즉 삼바드 야시 유도 선배 나와 레드 아주 추지네 삼바 야주로와 다 야도데 아주 야 리서 삼제 아주 마두시기도 하다 두치디 잡라 마리주로 추마 주디가라 삼바 기디저 랑체 두스 파취리 따기로와 따디갑라 가르나와리게서 삼바 야주 조그가 나와리기요래 디 추고래 왕보 추제 삼바 야조 삼바 조그가 마데 추마 조고 삼바 조고 마데 이나 미글리아 추디마 조 마통하지 삼바디 야주조 나와셔도 năng tin nào thì ngã sam nào là ngắm ra cho sam ba ya ru sem bi ngắm ra siêu lệ đi ngã sam nào ngắm ra đi đó ngã gar chi gọi xem ya mà rồi đó ngã du xem này gan gì gọi mà du stu gọi giờ khi chỉ đi thì mà san chuyện mà sai cái đó sam ba kêu này thì này dùng gọi chứ sao thì này cái lo là nào rồi đi ngã cái đi số chỉ đi lọc vào đi công作 vào đi 이나 가브레를 야 ngã đi 추가 다 먹어 제 문에 템버진제 디기 노트쇼체 ngāzulīya sōla nyēngādā nā kāngā māngbōshī līgōru wādā tīngā dzū ngūyī nīsūru chāgōru wā 다경화서 다시 디와 디네메아자 냠녀서 아주 lumba디와는 추규치 첨보체 한 삼바디기 파 삼바 교우지 마따디 삼바나마 추디기 마규디에 통고로와 제가 데니치도 조디가라 삼바링링 구교했던 거래 데두들이 가브리엘이 추디바 시우 삼바야 유튜브 나와라 샤르고래 샤르도 되니 아주 시해시네 마디치도 겹시치도 되니 추는 마사제 냥아 첨보차야 되네 용고로와
give an illustration to make the important to give an example to illustrate the importance of this. I can think back to my youth in Taiwan where I grew up. So we have many fast-flowing rivers going through ravines, and to cross these you have to walk across rather unstable bridges which are narrow and move and really are not very stable. And I have experience of walking across such a bridge, looking down at the fast-flowing river way below, and getting a feeling that the bridge is moving. But actually, of course, it's the water that's moving, the bridge is stable. But I look down and there's a wrong appearance, and I get the feeling that the bridge I'm standing on is actually what is moving. And then, what is happening is I'm taking this wrong appearance and I'm grasping it as true. This then could lead me to step back, try and stable myself, step back, and end up falling off the narrow bridge. So in this way, by taking unreal conventional truths as being true, we encounter problems.
Churden tudu zili lido na sha lido just same true je denigi milia mixi gyön shor je deni chödin tu ji yongyo ba na sha do dina xin jinga zugi denigi tu ji na wa deni yonggo ro wa.
And similarly, looking at this large stupa next to us, it can also happen that one looks at it and it appears as if the stupa is moving towards oneself. But of course, this isn't the case.
denigi na we the between na mangus ligore na lie du ngan zugi we ni su ha mo je chu je ne da de we ne den ba zin je no zhu xue ge chen bu xiong go lo ba de ne yan za disigora de ji be de ji ne le xie ba na xin de ne ya den ba ni yi nam xiang we ni su gi gun zu dan den ba dun de den ba xie go bi kim zhe ge la na sang an na so je bi ge na wan di da la si de da ma zu ya Bene Sangboda, Ngambada, Naso, Bachingazulia, Yaboda, Naso Nengor, Nawa. Dida la Nanzu, Dendu Jewa Chikupe, Zero. Gidina, Nanzu Desela, Jewa Chiku, Jewa Yores. Jazada, Nanzu Mi, Chiswana, Demi Mawachita, Mile, Sangbada, Ngambada, Jalaya, Sangboda, Ngambada, Dusu de Sangwada, Ngambasada, and Dini Chikajele, Ta Mara Chinyumdu, Naso Chingazu, Nengores. 제가 나와 나신 아주 될 나와들 제와 진아주야 초기에다 디니 제와 제와 차고로 와서다 상은 나서 제비게 나와 니다라 덴도 제와 제고베 그디 나가서 대수님도 제와 지고 그래서
Like in those illustrations then, when things are believed to exist in a way contrary to how they do, we can experience harm and problems. And the text makes the point here in this first half of a sentence. Since it is absolutely necessary to be involved with these appearances which bring about varieties of beneficial and harmful effects. Here when His Holiness writes that it's absolutely necessary to be involved with these appearances, he's referring to our daily interactions. Our daily interactions with people or life's events. We of course, we do interact with people and our environments continuously. And from this, a wide variety of appearances arise to us. And some of these lead to beneficial effects, and some lead to harmful effects. So we have to interact with the world around us. But when we do so in a way that's contrary to how they exist, harm can follow.
제베베 당한주 강라 저와 제시기 시디 철푸기 라신 인시고였어. 제상한주 시 강라에 저와 치비기 저와 치디갑라 저와 제시기 시데라 내갑기 라신 지다 라신 원에 된기 된다베 라신 용고래 니니디 내수다 하고 그래 신고 그래 저래 디마신 바이나 아주 노트먹고 쇼고 그래 저래.
The sentence concludes, but links back to what we looked at in a preceding segment. It is necessary to know the two natures, superficial and deep, of these objects with which we interact. So above, we heard how all phenomena have two natures, one superficial and deep, or the conventional and ultimate truth. So these need to be known in regard to all the objects with which we interact.
디자 당하는 주게 되대 니 셰바나 지하도 다신 첨부 지야 주어바이나 다 다신 첨부도 남래도 스테디컬 첨부 주도 다신 마조 마지요 바딩아서 나와리거와 제자 내가 나 주기 추요 왕게 다신의 리뷰어 바 나와 셔거데 이나 오라 다신의 다라 되되어와 제자 니 내가기 추유게 견 대당 오니수 오 거다가라 되바 이니수도 마신 바이나 근데 마견 쇼에 다시 리뷰어 바데 삼지야 나오도 근데 리뷰도 삼바이나 오 다시 리뷰도 삼바이나 다디 이긴 전에 노조 첨부 자거와 제자 공원에 니 용거제 오라고 된자 되되어 이내 아주建议 얘네 추이전에 리뷰어 바데 나와 샤송로와 제가 디게 다 리뷰도 쓰는 게 잡제 어지랍데 미디 어디 민요 요바셈 타라민도 레기로와.
Here then recall the two illustrations I gave, either on the bridge or looking at the stupa. Believing the appearance that is wrong, one can take evasive action which ends up actually harming us. The appearance of the stupa coming towards us, or the bridge, the stable bridge we are moving, that appearance was mistaken. But believing that appearance, we then end up trying to take evasive action and end up perhaps endangering ourselves, maybe falling over. So here, then this is a clear illustration of how taking an appearance to exist in the way that it does not, harm can follow.
내려 니마 좀 지셔요래. 제가 미지 공부지 된들이야다 되베도 공부기 된리야 다신을 부침부 주로 어디 가와나 다신은 뭐 주로 공부 된들이래 요래고. 다신은 이니 최근 술을 시도와 다신 다쇼도야 다신 어디 나지는 뭐를 주고 공부 된리요래. 제가 미지 데 고데데 메네 미šan다 중고 잡지 누가 나로 소소되 열에서 소소데 열에서 대고데네 아지 데수스테디 아니 메네 미시리고레서 고따지 튀신 중고레서 단 데데 다 밑에 다신 좀 되겠는데 미디 가르삼지 고따디 구마자고 삼도아 내가 고고다지 구마자고 삼제 근데 미디 데네 야용도 고따시 주인되어 열에서 도스다데 미직디 따치 용한데 가르치기 해라도 어찌돼 쇼쇼쇼 다시 리뷰도스가 주가 주로지 로고지 쇼스라고도사 아니 그 대용 따라와 진범마 다시 리뷰 통로와 그거한테도 로고지 주도와 아 저런데 주지나 다시 리뷰도스 게 잡쇼스 내 잡아디게 되는지 안 차상가 로고지 곧 때문에 투그레스 저런 주시 게 잡샤라도와 안 따지겐디 다시 주자 다시 리뷰도스 게 잡도와 게 잡도 잡아디게 차서 되는지 제대로 미녀바레스는 그 초단다 그 주샤레스 거 제가 디파라들 그 따디 티죠 구마이 조샤레스 제가 뭐 메니 지고마데 되네 우에니스를 하고 지고 봐삼자 추이체네 되네 제제 아니 고소서 경라로 와다 좀로 다 제다 제워를 스토어디.
A story from old Tibet, where some monks were outside doing some puja, and they were next to prayer flags, the kind that we have around the stupa, these on a tall post, and these the upright prayer flags. So the post was very tall, and there was a windy day, and someone else just walked by, saw the monks doing some puja, and then he saw this the prayer flags on the tall pole, and he thought the pole was about to fall onto the monks. So he ran and grasped the pole, trying to hold it steady. And the monks doing puja noticed this and stopped and asked what he's doing. And they said, quickly, come over and help. It's about to fall over. And so the monks got up from puja and helped. And then they called over other monks to try and help. Then they came and they looked and they said, but nothing's going on here. You guys are crazy. It's just a windy day. The pole is stable. So here we see how, again, in dependence on wrong perceptions, mistakes can follow.
mi goma goa de kuma je ma che ge nga pha su de kuma je de mi sang bo che ro bo chi yin do de pen ba xiu de chi yin do do che nga zu ba de le lo de che ta mi de pe ya wen se yi che che de duan da la nga zu ja la se kuma je de ma mo li go ro ba da di wa de yuan me a mo de lu ba shan da nga zu lu ma na de yong go ro ba de ne yin za da di sun go de ge rom che ge cha bu nga zu ge ne gap ki mi li ne Joba Chida, or same dingy Joba, Yung do as order, Mother Nekab. That is what been Rangi, Kimse, Rani, Kimse, Gode, Gentuch, and Tauto, Jawa Jacoba, Shila, Asora. That now to get washing by washing by Sadiwa Michik, getting a midbe, Godiwo, Jake, Kishi de Gipa, Namju Yago, and Kishi Yago Shepe, Sambu Indo Oche. Dondala Korongi, Donda Duviaki, Dondala Cabernet, Donda Duchene, Gohatan, Deniki Yungures, Denechile Michilangazo, get it Teochego Shebaina, and Shigla, Di Chi Tongsu Dar, Chebaki, and Java Cheba, Jebe, Rana, Jungun, Naso, Jundies, Chesada, Nazo, Chi, Numbu, all the media, Yahu and Serpe, Yahuresha, some big Cheba, Jeje, Collier, Rangu, Ludi, Chasa, he gave in that.
His Holiness then gives an illustration to making the same point. For example, there may be a cunning and deceptive neighbor with whom it is always necessary for us to interact and to whom we have related by way of an estimation that accords with only their general external appearance. This then is relating to what was mentioned in the paragraph above, that phenomena have these two natures, superficial and deep, and we need to know both of these. So here, we may have a general impression that, say, someone who's a fraudster or a thief, they look a certain way, they act a certain way. One can generally recognize a person who's a bad person, an untrustworthy person. But this certainly is not based in reality at all. So we may have a friendship with someone, we may know them a short while or even a long while. And in dependence on how they present themselves to us, we formulate a view. But that view can be very mistaken. We can develop a trust in someone, but they end up stealing from us or deceiving us. They present themselves in a particular way, but they are not such a person. And this then, through not knowing them well, we end up being deceived.
And midedan Jawa Java Zamgi Jun Mimber, Jawa Chilu Chubi Jun Yisa. Teza Denigi Jun Yadi. Midedan Java Chebatam Yukun Reveson, Java Chebatam Yukun Mares, Java Chubi Yuris, and Java Jeta, the Tataji, Machine Yuris, Java Jeta, was Machine Yuris.
The various losses that we have sustained in this relationship are not due to the fault of our merely having interacted with our neighbor. This is an important point. It's not due to interacting with them that we suffered loss.
They midi ranshin mashi biki wonki sui matikba haloba ins. Jesa migi ranshin ko namgyur chik pe yawshu tembarese ko ranshin sem dinge samlo de kanda yoba de ngaza ha mo che dene 최 마티바제 콜베 차상 르히 샤로 지산 디기가 저 노트 첨부 쇼와레지래.
So again, the various losses that we have sustained in this relationship are not due to the fault of merely having interacted with our neighbor. Rather, the fault lies with our mistaken manner of relating to them. Further, because of not knowing their nature, we have not assessed them properly and have thereby been deceived.
내나 안에 내내 나 가르쳐 버렸으니 미디기 치나 통낭당 자유 라신이가 레고 시네 셰바쳐 버렸어. 미치 넘규 된다나 안에 저게 쥐어바디게 하고 차고 하지 셈난게 딩기고 삼노 땅타당 콜레가 제타데 간지도 야고 하고 와지 그래서 미디치 통나다 다 자유 라신이가 레고 시나 안에 dinne hago wa ina media ranshin la shipigi tangjin chi juan so la shipi gang la desemi jawa chebe rani la yonggen chebo mujungwa sidi jeza dinne inza chi ko chi tongta da nang so de ko jeba de le ya wa hago ko sim dingi ko ka gar sam gyo ba de gar jigi yo ba de hago wa ina ane nga jugi ko le ya jawa chida de le ya chi 통나 바베 아주 파 제와체 아니 셈 딩기 인자 딩기 로에 지게 바베게 레가르 제도 아주 제도 좀 용어 첨부라고 말해제 용어디 라투 말해제래 용용 말했어 근데 대신에 다디 벨 샤워라 다디는 마 무이니스 샤래
And the example concludes, therefore, if our neighbor's external appearance and their fundamental nature had both been well known, we would have related to them with a reserve appropriate to their nature and with whatever corresponded to their capacities and so forth. Had we done this, we would not have sustained any losses. The key points being made here is that we need to understand an object both in its superficial nature and its deep nature, in order not to be harmed, in order not to make mistakes. And where we encounter harm or loss in our interactions with others, the fault isn't in interacting with others. It's not that others should be avoided. It's rather through not knowing the fundamental nature, as well as it's through not knowing both the external appearance and the fundamental nature. That is where the fault lies, not in interacting with others.
이사 내내게 미 망불리거다 난 먼저 냐마 야도와 파서 내거줘야다 진 야마도도 릴나파 망무로와 균능고 니면 이숨시 릴나도도 안디와 배 상보다 좀 밑에 계시되게 야와셔야당 디와 잘라디게 로봇에 야마게 자라서 로봇에다 디네시 안에 간삼질이야 되다는 저기 오다 미디베 야고도 선배 뢰히기와 되는 안 저기 디와 찹사당아도 니 잘라디 켜디 다도시 아세데 야야사가 결혼 유사죠 tenganzu chapsa danga zhodo den jalari kechi zhuwa mangbu yor dine ge guhwa da jizi dangbu an kashi liang ji pe sangdo horo che dine jige nyemba je da jara da jinganzu nyomda dung se nye zhe da dine je an gansam je le jana la nihu ye ge men ji lu je an ni je dine ganzu jado nihu je an jala chasa ke de dine mangbu yong go jiza dangbu wan guma je de ga la ko pe sangbo da ya hu yin do do je ko samma dingi di jeba de ganzu ya hu shu yin na ba tuen ba le de ko sam dingi di 무인의 수도 거 가서 구마게 삼다죠. 되네게 막못 해요래. 네, 내가 좀 봐라셔 이거 되네 보기도 와줘도.
So an illustration that people may here have experience of, but certainly happens where I come from, is that when one travels, journeys tend to take quite a while. One may spend several days in a bus or in a train, and then so you have the same people around you, and you get to know them quite well. And they may present themselves as really kind people, helpful people, wanting to help you out. And say, oh, you've got many things, let me help you carry, or you're a bit older, I'll help you carry. And you think, really nice person. And they help you carry when you have to change trains. but then they rush off with your goods and you never see them again. They presented themselves in a particular way, but that's not who they are. Similarly, again, someone that's friendly and you're getting on and you're drinking some tea on the train with them and you're building up a nice relationship with them. But later, when you don't notice, they may slip a powder, a substance into one's tea, and one falls asleep, sleeps very well, and you wake up, and all your possessions again are stolen.
And the negi nguru adang Geshe Chiku Dayan Chig Bumbul Wesho Landi Kablia, Peg Milia Sembas or Kishi Nichi Weshea, and Jingi Robo Chicken Sada, and Chigua Desa Robo Cheda, Denishi Peg Sambo Shushi Je, and the co Garsum that control Sambo Cheche, Tanga Kone Rasovena. That dingy coxeries or didn't say, didn't say, or some big sometimes your water, didn't sometimes wish your logic calpe, Miss Sambo Pansam Jay, Mimang to under some touchy, she was such a Sambo Jay, Mima or the medium on it, Angela Pantoja, I would do some the wish you lose a gelia, and top gelia, and a horror and Chike coxeries on Cheche, Mimalia, Tadoya, Machevada, Dinigura, Chesa, Migi, Church de la. Chiza chi chusu negapki chusu sangbe naba tuen badilia ko sem dingi rangshin gani cheba de pugi samdang han de gani ma mo ko na ngazu dele yichi cheche lue ki che jeba na tanga zulia gyong chimbu la yo ro chiza dine ji ta mi chusu ko ta lamsa de yichi ma cheba che chi nangsu de dine du ina da ko dingi sem dingi gari yo me na sambe ke cheba cheja ko ta Koi sem danta sem dingi sam danta de negap kyang no myu de na jeba ni bo ni de ya bo ha ko wa na na zu gyong chim bo ra ma res ka dil ba o ko de nga de ne chi go de na ko sem ding la ko de ne sam go nga gyong ra nya ga yor sem be nga du do so chi tu bu wa je sa gyong ra tu ko ma je sa de ne zang nga ju gi mi le ne jeba de ne xiong go res je sa de ne gi chi jeba nangi sem dingi ni su ni ga de se bo ha ko ba na nga zu gyong chim bo ra go ma ra gi ma res 제자데 니가 하모고 제 치유주스 다가라서 빼야 버려서 될래 다가라 뢰키 샤반 나즈를 경험치 버려 내가 요래서 난别人 당부别人다别人지 순고래
One's not only in danger of making such an error when traveling and meeting strangers, or with the illustration with a neighbor. Certainly, such people with such deceptive personality may choose as a career to go into a so-called public service. And when it's time for them to win an election, they will come around to our area, promise our world, hear our needs, say they will solve all our problems, give us whatever we need, build whatever we may want, and try their best to convince us that they have our best interests at heart. We would then vote, they win, and they only then pursue their own interests. We don't see them again for several years, and they look after themselves. So the mistake in these illustrations is the same. We don't investigate well. Rather, we take what appears to us, and we believe that. We trust in it too readily, place our trust in that appearance too readily. We don't look at the deeper nature, but rather we allow ourselves to be deceived by the superficial nature.
And in Mikhachelia, Geshe Thubten Rabten zubu to that in the color of the dust, Pajik, Dust Marine, Anjik, Tottenham Tangaso, she hands Yorova, the Niki Sheva, Chili, Jobat in the Zubdo Hovdaji, Yabo, Yosamara, Samson Yena, and Kashi, Sem Nalo Lepe. Mi Chi Jobalia, the Yabuchena Sherawa. That teacher Bakari was Mikhail, Gishi Chapo Shea, Ben Yahoshi machine, Ben Zubdo Horshea, and Dinigi, Dini Yungore, that is that dinner, same Dinglia, Be Semba Sampo Shanle, Robochi or Pempachi or something, same Dinglia, Pansem Yabu again, Jambu again. Chi Geshe Dalia, Jim Butenalia, the Yabotu, Gishi Na Chapura, Zubura Shea, and Dinigi said the Yungurva. Cezanne Yandi, or the me, Chi, Koyat, the dinner, the immediate Yabu Samara, some Shavana, and no to check your watches. The name Zanganzugi, mi chi namjur dang nange semgi dingi geshe nila dang zuge gochoba yakbo yoba na te jeza denishi na oda ko geshe dang ko denish yorde ina mi sangbo yora changbo yora sayade ngazu hago ba na yaji yakbo yorwa san denishi yungoro wa pele masona ngazu mile dene yungore jire.
Taking those illustrations, then placing them in a different context, I think it's important to be aware of this, that should we meet someone and from their way of acting we think, oh, this is an awful person, or the way they speak, we think, this is a person I best avoid. Here, again, we are taking what appears to us and readily believing that to be the actual situation. We don't yet know the person well. We don't know that they just may act in a particular way or speak in a particular way, but actually they're a really kind person, perhaps a humble person. Here the mistake is not knowing the deeper nature of the person, not knowing their motivation. We readily grasp at what appears to us, thinking that if they talk like this or about these certain topics, or they act in a certain way, they must be an awful person. Here we're making the same mistake.
That is a bedina shinda chenam sa chiam chayi nisu dele shenbi pugi delu shenji mebar nangsu da nisu tumbashi na tanyi nangsu gangdar dense zina chasha choba in mekyang dedar minbar de denden tar naya puna midempe demba chuba ngongi chuba minla ane tane mebar minbi umabeke umar nebashi yins dere nesu jishin shebe tawala ume tawa seras.
Now coming to the final paragraph in this section. Similarly, if phenomena had no deep way of being other than their external or superficial way of abiding, and if thus the way they appeared and the way they existed were in agreement, then it would be sufficient to hold that conventional appearances are true just as they appear, and to place confidence in them. However, this is not so. Though phenomena appear as if true, most true, ultimately they are not true. They are neither truly existent or established by way of their own essence, nor completely non-existent. Rather, phenomena abide in the middle. This view, the knowledge of such a way of existing, just as it is called the view of the Middle Way.
tumbashi na sido 지상 아주 최근에 나는데 나의 갑라 치 낭솔라 가는 것은 강라에마 두바 랑문이 두바시 난고로와 나와 나신 되나라 다가랑지 임바 있나 나스니스 tum바리 차고래 제자 되루기라 다가랑 임바 있나 델레 록스 매바 있나 나스니스 tum바 차고래 지레 최 니스 델레 셴비 푸기 되루 셴지 매바 낭수 니스 tum바시 인서 제가 tumba시래. 제가 만서 나와 나신 나는데 랑원이 뭐 강라마 랑원이 주바 난고래. 데 나와 나신 돈라양 풀어야 다가라 이바이나 나선디스 tumba 채고래.
Looking at the first sentence, or part of the first sentence, similarly, if phenomena had no deep way of abiding other than the external or superficial way of abiding, and if thus the way they appeared and the way they existed were in agreement. So it's quite clear. Phenomena appear to us in a particular way, which is that they appear to exist. Phenomena appear to exist by way of their own essence. But this is not the case. If they appear to us in the way they existed, there would be no need for investigation, because what we first perceive would be valid, would be completely unmistaken. But that is not the way, that is not the case. The superficial way of abiding, this is not in accordance with the ultimate way of abiding.
지산 낭수된 된기 부기 되로 니가 된 낭수 니수 튜바 임바이나 아내가 타이기 낭수 강낭 따라 된세 되진나 차샤 초와 인스 지산 나와 나신 된라 내바리 임바이나 가나와 탐지 된바리 세네 맞아 차샤 초고 랍초고레스 초바 인 뭐에 짱 세되다 초고레스 이내야 나와다 나와 나신 된라 찍바마 나수니스 미튼바레스 거리 짱 세야 돼.
I'll read the whole sentence then. Similarly, phenomena had no deep way of being other than their external or superficial way of abiding, and if thus the way they appeared and the way they existed were in agreement, then it would be sufficient to hold that conventional appearances are true just as they appear, and to place confidence in them. This important sentence. Phenomena appear to us in a certain way, and we readily believe them to exist in this way. But this is not how they exist. The way of appearing and the way of existing is not in agreement or not in harmony. Rather, it is discordant. The way phenomena appear, the way they exist, is discordant. If they were concordant or in agreement, then we could take what appears to our mind as being correct and mistaken. But this is a mistake, and we are therefore mistaken to place confidence in them.
제가 대신 아주 미래에 배샤와 당신 치 낭수 치 죄바데 배 상도 홉 제제 나로 양아주 고하다야게 삼로 지요베네 미래에 치 낭수디다 나기 셈기 딩기 삼다소데 가가니도와 니여바 나신 디나신 아주리야 최간디 나야나 낭도 갑라 네 랑광라마데 랑문에 덴버투바 능고르데 이네 된다라 나와 나시 여르베세네 디요마레스 대시 미디가선 치료 죄바데 상도 없이 나와 나신 아주 치죄바 나와나 상보디 된다라 코 상보 여르베세 요마레스 가 고다 차도고 디나시 저기 뭐버 취역간데 나 나이도 갈라 갈라마 랑문에 두바 능고레 나와 나신다 제바치데 된라 제바나 데니기 가야 마주바지 동사지마도 요 말해서 해야지 식으로 진짜 나서 예수 미튼 바래스
In brief, the meaning here is the way phenomena appear and the way they abide is not in accordance. The way phenomena appear and the way of abiding is not in accordance. So we know that sometimes we present ourselves to others that is not in accordance with how we're feeling. We may not want to express how we're feeling, but we present ourselves in a more socially acceptable way. So too with how others interact with us. So too with those who are intentionally deceptive. They may act as a decent person, a kind-hearted person, but their motivation is to deceive others. The meaning then is that the way phenomena appear is not how they exist. The way of appearing and the way of abiding is not in accordance.
that dera member de dende na ya phuna midembe demba tuba ngo yi tuba mi se de da jisanga to na de kala gang lai ma de rang ngo de tuba nang go re na wa na xin jeba chen de phula den de shi yo ma de jisang de ni gi jeba chi de la dong sang cha ge jisang dong wa yin zang de le demba ma tuba sa da ngo yi ma tuba sa de yo ma de na wa na shi ye na ngo yi tuba demba tuba yin go de yin ne na wa na shi yo ma de ni ma tuba de jisang tene mebam minpe da ane denige nawa nashin jebajine 가야마 demba 마주바레 데 동화 지레 데 ane tene mebare besen tene mebaya 말해서 싸우기네 mebaya 말해서 다신 집에서나 라로로 나와 nashin 주 요 말에 데 이네 meba 말해서 ane 간에 쇼레스네 텐제 현실을 되네 略大把좀 요 말해서 tene meba mi se tene meba mi se de da ngo yi zhuba mi tene meba mi umar ne ba shi hi se umar ne ba ha se na wa na xin ji da shen ji be ce na me ba jie 다 자오기네 매바레서 자오기네 매바 말에 신신을 뛰는 요바레스 제가 우말 내봐 세도 라라 나와나신 데모두바에 매바 데모두바에 매되긴 아니 자오기네 매바야 말 예를 뢰파 따바지 여봐 저 매바야 말에 랑문이 두바 여봐야 말에 매 자오기네 매바야 말 제가 우마 타니다 저 우마 내바레스
However, this is not so. Though phenomena appear as if true, most true, ultimately they are not true. This then just confirms what has been presented above. Phenomena do not exist in the way that they appear. If they did, they would be truly existent, and we could take the way their appearance as being reliable, as being faultless. But this is not the case. Phenomena rather do not exist in the way they appear, although we take them as being true, as most true. Whereas ultimately or finally, in their final analysis, they are not true. The text continues, they are neither truly existent or established by way of their own essence. So that's two ways to say the same thing. Then, nor completely non-existent. So on the one hand, phenomena are not truly existent or independent, existent by way of their own nature, but on the other hand, they are not completely non-existent. Rather, now back to the text, phenomena abide in the middle. So phenomena abide in the middle between the two extremes of being established by way of their own nature or being completely non-existent. And the way they abide in the middle is that they're in this regard, they are empty of being established by way of their own nature, but they are not completely non-existent because they are existent but dependent on imputation by mind. So phenomena do not exist in the way they appear, but they do exist, but merely or only as imputations by mind.
대리니스시도 그 나와나신 또 나여도 나와나시 랑문의 주와 매바 제가 매바 동상시 동반이시 동반이 도바지 다는 자오기네 매바는 매바 말에 신실에 되네 뢰파 또 근데 뢰파 따바점이 여바 신실에 되네 뢰 따바점 여바래 쓰데 제가 되네기 랑신이 마주바 뢰파 따바점 여바디 우메따와 텐유베 투모마이 우메따와서 디레스고다
This view, the knowledge of such a way of existing, just as it is called the view of the Middle Way. This is a unique view of Prasangika, that phenomena do not exist in the way that they appear. They are empty of being established by way of their own existence, own essence, yet they are also not completely non-existent. Rather, in between the two, they are found to exist as mere imputations by mind, or as only an imputation by mind.
나는 저게 가사단 내리기 셰지 돈다 닝보디 다 돈는 것도 둘 가르제 람나 지난 최 간에 지인네 고 나도 나완 하신지 다신 집에서 랑원에 마주바시 동사시 임바제 이내 그런 다네电진 저와 중 여반사电진 저와 중에 파 뢰파 따바증 여바자 지지자 딩이보데 덴바니서 공조 대바도 된다 대바니 최 탐지게 돼도 딩이 덴바니 요레스 지장아도 디 하고 고랑아서 또 고고래서 월다 지자 나와 나신 다가라레 섬데 차샤바 있나 아주 노르시야 먹고요레스 지자 데니게 차샤바디 아주 나와 나신 다가레 섬베 섬로디 덴신 차로 거와 덴신 차로 거라 지자 디고 녀모바게 지자 코르기 규치고레스 그래서 당가서 두째 받지 나와나시 마주바 또 되니게 또 봐 있나 아니 딩이데 하고 봐 있나 딘진기 록셰 바다 하고 그래 디 하고에도 맞아 녀모 봐야래야 아니 매바스 두고래 진짜 디 하고에 되게 버려야지 지그래 다디 하고는 아주기 셈디다 아주기 셈디 아니 뭐 라신데 덴바마주바 덴바주베 동바 사지게 셈당 뭐 라신 직바인바래 직바리 개발매디게 이내 당 아주 셈디 시행질에 뛰는 주바 인자 당 아주기 셈디 jam nije jaju sem jimba do chudim selaso be sebe nyamle gomba ina di gomba le tene ngazu sem di duiri ti ma pangje sem yaga ri gyuwa ta tu gures gyuwa ta benza tanga jugi 띵기 대화 톱투야다 탈바다 탐지기 보고 투기 야게 땅 투고래 제가 저기 냠len 교와 땅 알아도 셈리아 소교 땅 바인다 소교 땅 투고를 가서 유단建了 对吧 先了 对吧 对吧呢 对的主办上先就 对吧 되는 거 야ር 땅 투야다 누가 뒤에先对呢거 매바 수 투야 차고를 제가 알아서 되니게 탈바다 탐지기 보고 투야라 아주 뒤지 투고를 해야지 어디 순고로 와당 조로시
In brief, then, this weekend, we've looked at how all phenomena, without exception, when one investigates them, one comes to see that they do not exist in the way they appear. They are empty of true existence. And realizing the empty nature of phenomena, or the phenomena are empty, one realizes the ultimate truth. That being said, though, phenomena do exist, but as dependent arisings, dependent on mere imputation by mind. And this is the conventional truth. So phenomena do not exist by way of their own nature. And realizing this, we realize the ultimate truth, but realizing that they do exist, but only as dependent arisings, one realizes the conventional truth. But all our suffering comes from not realizing this, from being under the control of an ignorance that grasps at phenomena as existing in the way that it appears. The text gave several illustrations talking about the superficial and deeper level, but the very deepest level of error is that phenomena are taken to exist by way of their own nature, and they do not exist like this at all. And from grasping at phenomena as existing in the way that they appear, as with the illustrations, we see the problems and difficulties come. And those problems and difficulties come in the form of afflicted minds arising and karma being accumulated. But understanding this, gaining further knowledge, applying it through meditation, one will come to recognize that no phenomenon exists in the way that it appears. The phenomena are empty of existing in this way. We come to realize the ultimate truth. But with this, we realize that it doesn't mean phenomena don't exist at all, but they are mere dependent arisings. They exist conventionally. Moreover, the nature of our mind is empty, just like a Buddha. And the emptiness of our mind and the emptiness of a Buddha's mind is no different. But because of the view of Prasangika, the view of the Middle Way, whilst on the one hand our mind is empty, it is also a dependent arising, which means the afflictions that currently obscure our mind, those same afflictions that a Buddha has managed to eradicate, we too can eradicate. Through training in the way that the Buddhas have presented, we can eliminate progressively or sequentially all the afflicted minds, and at the same time develop sequentially all wholesome, virtuous minds. Therefore, because of the two truths, we can come to recognize our tremendous potential to transform ourselves and develop into perfected beings for the sake of others.
윤지기 땡제 남자 삼다야다 가서 풍보를 삼다야다 풍보디기 땡지 제와 중 삼다야 다 가르치 된 삼다면은 땡지 제와 중 삼다 땡지 제와 중 삼다 세제라 당한 줄이야 benenga sedi phungbo le samda ba nang phungbo de lo ya kan nang du ta na wa na shin ji ta kan stu sit ko ni na chu da gang lai ma de rang mun de ba nang go re phungbo di ji chen le tuen de ba ji da di tung min do sme du shin de je ba je da nga le samda ba na nga de tin ji zhuwa ju samda ne de ne ko nga de nang chu de lo la kan nang du na wa na shin nga de nga zu phungbo de na kan ni du se be du shin de je ba che de nga zu dong ba ni ge do ye ge 동반이래 제바 제약이 제약이 제바 책으로 되니게 삼다정을 제바 제고를 해서 하다 제자데 셈 Sangbo, Jamba Zao Kumbala Dene, Di Kumbala Dene, Shananibe somebody do to war, Chazan didn't teaching Java Chuaza. Do to war, it is a simple somebody, Ya Nuba Chertan to war as Beda, Tendigan Namja some Daje, Dito and Zugida, Nitus Chebaja, the Chagore, and the dining body, the Kazan, the Dirishade, the Nati Chagorua. And then Jama, that Muti Rashida.
The way to engage in the meditation I've presented this weekend and previously too. My encouragement is to utilize the technique of dependent arising. Everything you think of, every phenomenon that appears to your mind, ask yourself, how does it appear? And it appears as if it is independent. So if we take the aggregate or whatever object, investigate to see if its way of appearing and its way of abiding is in harmony, is concordant. And through going through the meditation as reflected, one will come to see that the way of appearing as inherently existent or truly existent is not how phenomena abide, which is empty of inherent existence. So again, every object of thought, its way of appearing is as inherently existent, its way of abiding is as empty of inherent existence. Nevertheless, though, phenomena are not completely non-existent. They are empty of true existence, empty of inherent existence, but they exist as a mere dependent arising, dependent on imputation and causes. Here, one first realizes the ultimate truth, and thereafter, the conventional truth. And the more one engages in this meditation, and also reflection as one is going about one's daily activities, one will strengthen one's familiarity with understanding how phenomena exist in reality. To the extent that one understands this, one's grasping at phenomena will weaken. One's grasping at phenomena that we mistakenly believe will bring happiness, we mistakenly believe that will bring harm, will weaken. Our afflictions thereby weaken. This way, we rapidly can spiritually develop. Okay, thank you. And then we'll continue from here next time with the next outline, the basis of negation.